Greetings, my fellow babies, and welcome to another edition of Complaint Corner. Today we're going to be working on a 1998 Jeep Grand Cherokee 5.9 Limited. This was sitting at a friend of mine's shop, and late one night some thieves broke into the yard, opened up all the doors, left them open after rummaging through the Jeep to steal whatever they could, went underneath of the vehicle, cut out the catalytic converter and the muffler for some reason, took off with that. All the money is in the catalytic converter. I hate that people do that, but it's a pretty common thing, especially around here. Anyway, right after they did that, that evening was a massive rainstorm, and since they had left all the doors open, the inside of this thing got flooded out. It was pretty nasty and pretty bad shape. Picked it up from my buddy for cheap with the sole intention of yanking the 360 out of this and swapping it out with the motor in the Dodge Ram, which has a number 8 issue. So I just figured that would be an easy, cheap way to get my truck running again. However, in the process, before starting to yank this motor out, I fell in love with this thing. I used to have a 95 Orvis Edition Limited, and I absolutely loved it. And this model right here is like the granddad of that generation of Jeep. And it comes fully loaded with everything, all leather, heated seats, power doors, power windows, seat position memory, the Infinity Gold premium sound system, just has everything. It's just an awesome vehicle. And so I set about doing a restoration on it. Pulled all the seats out, steam cleaned, vacuumed, armor-alled, reinstalled everything. But one of the big issues, aside from having to replace the catalytic converter and muffler, everything else is relatively minor, but the big issue was, since it had sat for years, the fuel pump got completely wasted. Now, on this particular model, there's a couple different ways to go about this process, but typically what you would do is disconnect the fuel hoses, pull the straps, lower the tank, and do the work that way, because your fuel pump and filter, etc., is one unit that drops down from the top side of the fuel tank. So that's how you would get to it. On this one, I took a look at it and was preparing to do exactly that. However, I would have to remove the tow hitch setup, the metal guard over the tank, and it just a lot of work, big pain in the ass. So I had done what I'm getting ready to show you on pickup trucks several times before, and decided, what the hell, I'm going to do it on this, save myself many hours of work. So basically what I did was went ahead and cut the carpeting away and made some cuts on the floor of the back of the Jeep, so I could expose the fuel tank and the fuel pump. And some people are very particular about this and don't want to cause any damage to the vehicle. I totally understand that. For me, once I'm done, you'll never know that I did it, and it's just worth it to me to do it this way. So basically, if you're interested in doing it this way, you are going to get you as close in as I can, what you're going to do is you're going to measure from against the back of the seat coming this way, and from your driver's side coming across this way, and your measurements for your cut are going to be at 19 inches and then at 28 inches, and then coming from this direction you're going to be at 14 inches and 21.5 inches. So that's where you're going to make your cuts to be able to pull the flaps back to access your fuel pump. Just be very careful when you're cutting so you don't go too deep. This is a neoprene tank, and if you go more than 1/4 inch, you can cut into the tank itself. Not a total catastrophe, because as long as you don't make a complete mess of it, you can reseal the neoprene tank if you make a small cut in it. But just be careful, and those measurements I gave you are also going to help you to avoid being right on top of where the tank is flush with this flooring. Once you make the cut, peel back and expose where this unit is, you're going to have your wiring harness feed up through here. So you're gonna have to crawl underneath the vehicle, locate it, reach up, disconnect it, and it'll feed right back through here. Then you're gonna have this locking washer on the top of it, a locking nut, and that's what holds everything in place. All right, when you go to remove this, it's probably gonna be pretty well stuck. So these little ridges here, you use a flathead screwdriver and a hammer to tap it counterclockwise to break it loose, and then just spin it off. Just be careful when you do this. You don't want to damage or destroy this, because when you get your brand new assembly, you'll have absolutely everything you need except for this. Why they don't include that, I don't know. But basically your new assembly is going to look like this. Like I said, it's all complete. So obviously remove the plastic baggie. Pay attention to the orientation when you remove it. You're going to put the new one right back in exactly the same way. And then you're going to put your locking top on and screw it down clockwise, getting it nice and snug. Feed your new electrical connector back down through here, like I said, crawl underneath, reconnect it. By the way, your fuel line, which connects right here, and remove this obviously, connects right here, right over that lip. There's just two little tabs that lock it into place. So you're just going to press on the tabs and it'll pop right off. And then you can go ahead and pull it out. That reminds me, I misspoke when I said that this is the only piece that does not come with your new assembly. The locking piece that I just mentioned that goes in there, you're going to want to take that off of your old pump and reuse that as well, because they're not going to give you one. When I removed the old filter assembly, pump and filter assembly, as you can see, this is what I found. It's absolutely caked with all kinds of crud like that. Yeah, there's no going back from that. And when I pulled it out of the tank, I've cleaned it up now, but when I pulled it out, the entire bottom of the tank was filled with crud and crap, as well as about 15 gallons of very nasty, useless fuel. So basically what I have, and there's a lot of different types of pumps available out there, and once you expose it like this, you can pretty much use a hand siphon if you want to drain all that out of there. I have a very inexpensive pump that attaches to my cordless drill, and then I just feed hoses in and out, one side to the other, and pump that all out of there in short order. And then got my shop vac, wet dry vac, and got most of the rest of the crap out of there, then was able to reach in by hand and hand clean everything else. So that's all ready to go now. I just have to drop the pump in there and seal everything up, prime it, and fire it up. Very important, this rubber gasket that's on your new unit. Just drop that down about midway on this assembly when you feed it down into the tank, so that you can go ahead and seat this into the tank opening first. Otherwise, you're gonna have a really bad time with it. So you wanna get that seated down in first, then you can go ahead and lower your assembly into place. And these are spring loaded. So when you set it down in there, it's gonna seem like it's a little too tall. You're just gonna have to press down on it after you put your ring down over top. So just press down in the center and then get the ring started and get it all snugged down. It's a good thing that I decided to change how I did these videos after being out of the game for so many years. So now, instead of letting the camera go the entire time, I just do it in clips to try to not bore you to tears and get straight to the point. Have done this many times before, very little issue, can do it relatively quickly. This thing was a pain in the ass. The combination of getting the pump assembly onto the gasket onto the fuel cell, It just did not want to line up no matter what. I lubed the gasket, got a straight edge to pry around the edges as I seated it down in. It took me about an hour to get this thing seated in. So don't give up, you can do it. Sometimes they go in easy, sometimes not so much. Also, the retaining ring did not want to thread down in there. That was a huge pain in the ass. Took a long time to get it seated down in there correctly. Take your time with it. I know it's frustrating, but make sure that you don't have it cross-threaded, that it's completely flush. Get it all the way down, completely tight, completely flush. Otherwise, you're doing all this for nothing. If you had good fuel in your system and you just need to replace the fuel pump because of age, electronic issues, whatever, this step is not necessary. But if your situation is like mine and you had any kind of bad fuel in the system, gunk, whatever, another step, if you have access to an air compressor, if you have any kind of air tools whatsoever, grab a basic air nozzle, then go to your fuel rail, which is right here. Here's a cap, as far as I know. Take this cap off. There is a Schrader valve underneath this cap. It's the same type of valve in your tires. All right, you can pick up a Schrader valve removal tool at any auto parts store. And you're gonna put this end down in, and you're going to unscrew the valve, take it all the way out, then put your air nozzle in that port and just keep blowing it out. Every time you back off, you get a tiny bit of spray back of fuel. Keep resetting it and blowing air until you get to the point when you pull it off, you don't have any back pressure, no more fuel coming out. Obviously, you want to do that at the beginning of the project before you clean out the fuel tank. But that'll help get any of that bad fuel from the rail all the way back out of the lines, so you'll have a completely fresh start. When you're done with the installation, just carefully fold the panels back down that you had made the cuts in and peeled up to do the job. Get it as close as you can to being flush, and then you can take any type of sealant that you want to put along the seams, because you want it to be absolutely airtight. Then once you do that, you can just use flooring adhesive and spread that all over top of the metal, and then lay your carpet back in place, smooth around the edges, vacuum it. And obviously, yes, you're still going to see a seam unless you're a professional carpet installer, but that's the price you pay. And hopefully with the measurements that I gave you earlier in the video, you can make a much smaller cut in the carpet and a single panel flap to peel back as far as accessing the pump. I couldn't find any specific information on measurement, so it was a little bit of trial and error on this particular vehicle. It's a lot easier with pickup trucks because you can get underneath and see where it lines up and measure from underneath the truck, and then measure in the bed to make a pretty much perfect cut. Not so much with this thing. But anyway, hopefully that helps out, and you'll be able to get a pretty precise opening for the project. My biggest concern was not the aesthetics of the carpet, but the functionality. So making sure that the decking was put back in place, nice and smooth, level, completely sealed up, so that there's no issues there. And reset the carpet. It doesn't look horrible, but obviously you can see the seam, so I just threw this cover down on top of it. That's good enough for me. Obviously you've got the option, you can buy the rear carpet piece and just replace it if it bothers you. Doesn't bother me, so I'm good with this. Okay, once all else is said and done, and you've added fresh fuel, it's time to prime the system. So you're going to turn it on, let the pump engage and prime, turn it off, repeat process several times, because if you completely flush your system out from the fuel rail back, your pump's only going to engage for a few seconds. So it's not going to push enough fuel all the way forward. So I'll just do that several times. is live. All right, hopefully that helps somebody out. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching.